Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining to listen in about Cancer Genetics. Cancer Genetics, we're a publicly traded company. We're listed on NASDAQ, ticker is CGIX. Everything that we do at Cancer Genetics is focused on one thing. And if you can look at slide 3, it shows that we are really focused on delivering the most comprehensive capabilities in precision medicine for oncology. Our business model, if you look on the next slide, slide 4, addresses a very large market globally, about $460 billion that will be spent on oncology. And it's a category that's very fragmented, and we've done a few acquisitions to continue our growth in this category. We now work with 8 out of the top 10 pharmas, helping them deliver better, more targeted drugs by helping them with their trials and with their companion diagnostic development. And we also help hundreds of cancer centers globally with testing to deliver precision medicine and to help them manage and personalize treatments for their patients. We have about 100 patents globally, 49 here in the US, and a very strong history of growth, about 77% revenue growth from 14 to 15, and about 43% 4-year CAGR. So our business model, if you look on slide 5, is very focused on balancing innovation and execution. So in our space, there's a constant need for delivering new, interesting insights about how cancer works, what drugs will respond best to which cancers and to what patients, and then ultimately also developing tests that are approved and commercializing them in the marketplace. So what we do is we have a model that goes from bench to bedside. So we provide partnering with leading institutions to develop these new insights, such as Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, Dana-Farber, USC School of Medicine, many others. We then develop new insights and take those into clinical trials with big pharmaceutical and biotech companies to help them power their trials and their testing, and then ultimately bring it into patient care. Analysts expect us to do about 27 million or so in revenue in 2016, which we're very comfortable with. And that's a major increase, again, from 2015, where we did a little over 18 million in revenue. If you fast forward to slide 7 and look at what markets that we're in, the market for oncology testing is growing because, number 1, cancer cases are increasing. Number 2, new therapies are coming to market. And number 3, our ability to understand and diagnose these cancers is evolving quite rapidly. Analysts expect that about $11 billion will be spent on oncology testing, almost half of that by biotech and pharma companies for their clinical trials and for developing new companion diagnostics, and the other $5 million for discovery and in-market patient testing. Over the past few years, we've grown tremendously, and we expect continued growth in the next coming in throughout 2017, driven primarily by 4 factors. And if you look on our growth drivers slide on slide 8, you can see that they include immuno-oncology. We're now today doing about 30 plus trials in immuno-oncology, which is where the body uses its own immune system to really fight off cancer. This is a breakthrough new category. It's a lot of growth in this category. We've developed multiple partnerships. In January of 2016, we were doing about 3 or 4 trials. So that number has increased over 10x in the last year. Because of our portfolio, we now have what we call an end-to-end portfolio where we can do all the testing for hospital systems and cancer centers, whether it be blood-borne cancers, solid tumors, lung cancers, cervical cancers, lymphomas. And that unique portfolio we think has significant value long-term. Third, we continue to launch innovative new tests. And fourth, we have the content and capabilities to constantly partner with pharma companies on a global basis. If you look at slide 9, understand our pharma relationships. Again, we have now contracts with 8 out of the top 10 pharmas. We're working on actually over 120 clinical trials today. And we have revenue contract with the pharmas well in excess of $40 million. That's been one of our fastest growing areas in our business. More importantly, the other big category where we innovate, continue to build some very strong long-term value is in collaborations. We have nearly 20 collaborations with research institutions and leading cancer centers around the world, including in France, US, India, Japan. And this gives us access to new content, new ideas, and more importantly, it allows us to work with the knowledge leaders to get early development that we can then bring to generate revenue. Some of the more interesting highlights from last year, or I'm going to touch on three of them on slide 12, are with the H3 Biomedicine, which is an innovation engine for Eisai, a global healthcare company based in Japan, where we're doing the development and clinical trials for the first ever gene splicing drug in myeloid cancer. We're also working with Pfizer and the Huntsman Cancer Institute to develop a cell-free liquid biopsy-based assay for disease monitoring in kidney cancer. And we also are working at the forefront of immune characterization by looking at immune-related genes to identify subtypes of clinical outcome and clinical response in colon cancer with HTG and USC School of Medicine. So again, it's this balance of innovation and execution that makes us very unique. We have a very comprehensive portfolio of genomic tests and panels, as I've outlined on slide 13, in blood cancers, in solid tumors, and also now in hereditary cancers as well. One of our partners in developing the technology is Mayo Clinic. You can see on slide 14, we have multiple tests that we're developing with them through a joint venture. It's their only joint venture in oncology and next-gen sequencing. And our first test is coming out in multiple myeloma, and the second one is for lung cancer. And our goal in this partnership is to develop the gold standard of tests that both Mayo and CGI can then bring to market. Let me walk you through how we think a little bit about the tests. So if you look at slides 15 and 16, these are very focused panels. The first one in lymphoma, our focused lymphoma panel in slide 15. And if you look at the content, the way we create these panels, we try to look at the comprehensive genes that are known clinically that patients and doctors want to see to help them manage their disease. Secondly, we look at a subtype of lymphoma, DLBCL, to look at, which is one of the largest subtypes, to look specifically at how can we get better understanding of what's going on. Is it an aggressive DLBCL? Is it non-aggressive? And then what is the potential outcome going to be for the patient? What's the risk level? High risk, low risk, aggressive subtype, non-aggressive, and what is the cell of origin? And then finally, we're looking at drug pathways. What are the drug pathways, such as BCR, BC3, PI3 kinase, Wnt? And so because we develop these panels to give diagnostic information, prognostic information, and then map to therapies, both existing and FDA approved, as well as therapies that are emerging, an emerging class of therapeutics, the panel becomes very useful and very interesting both for biotech companies, but also for the clinical care of patients. Very similarly, we've launched the only panel for renal cancer, for somatic renal cancer carcinoma, to diagnose, prognose, and also predict therapy response, which is on slide 16. And again, that very same test will be brought in the future and be done directly from blood. So no biopsy material will be needed. So again, this kind of innovation and execution in terms of top line growth and market share is critical. So the more important things that we're going to be doing in 17 are on slide 18, which is focusing more on immuno-oncology, focusing on our high-sensitivity liquid biopsy franchise. We plan on launching tests in lung cancer, kidney cancer this year, and more importantly, to make them very high-performance tests that can replace traditional biopsies for the monitoring and therapy mapping for patients. Immuno-oncology is one of the hotter categories that we're very excited about. If you look at slides 19 and 20, you can see that it's a big category. It'll potentially impact up to 60 to 70% of all patients. We announced partnerships with Merck last year in immuno-oncology, where we're not only doing trials, but also the testing in the market. So for patients that are approved for Keytruda, we also announced a deal with BeiGene as well, which is an innovative Chinese biotech company, where we're working both in the targeted therapy as well as the immuno-oncology testing. Immuno-oncology testing is going to be at a major inflection point in the next few years as it becomes more and more routine, especially in solid tumors, where the use has gone up quite dramatically. Again, in our own lab, we've grown immuno-oncology testing about 10 to 12x, both in clinical trials and also actually in routine patient care. So our business model, going back to that in slide 21, is really to continue to do clinical trials to generate near-term revenue for us. Again, we're now managing over 120 studies and trials across our sites. We think many of them will transform cancer care, and some of those will then eventually also go on to become companion diagnostics in our portfolio. And we have about 100 global patents today, about 49 here in the US, a very solid history of growth, and I'll touch a little bit on the revenue growth on slide 23. For the first 9 months through 16 that we've reported, we did about 19.8 million. Analysts think that we'll do about 27 million for the full year 16, which we're very comfortable with. And again, we've had very strong quarter over quarter as well as year over year revenue growth. If you look at 2012, the year right before we went public, we did 4.3 million. The year we went public in 13, we did 6.6, and now we're doing more than that in one quarter. So again, we think we're highly undervalued in today's market, given our strong history of growth, our portfolio, and really the brand that we have built with both biotech and pharma customers as well as other collaborators. We've got 10.7 million on our balance sheet as last reported. We have a good clinical reimbursement and a very good mix of payer coverage. If you look at our first 3 quarters in 16, about 52% of our clinical revenue comes from commercial payers such as the Aetnas and Cignas and Blue Crosses of the world, about 34% from Medicare, and about 14% directly from hospitals or ordering sites. So again, we think we have very solid growth drivers. I'd like to touch on some of them for this year on slide 26. The growth drivers that we have will be the launch of our hereditary cancer testing panel, the launch of our multiple myeloma next-gen sequencing panel, additional immuno-oncology studies that we'll be launching, and our liquid biopsy franchise. So we have a number of major launches that'll drive both near-term revenue and also, very importantly, long-term sustainable differentiation in our business. Again, we believe that we're building really the oncology diagnostic partner of choice, both through our collaborative business model, our disease-focused content and knowledge, and our comprehensive capabilities. We've got a world-class board of directors outlined on slide 29 that includes John Papajohn, who's been very successful in healthcare investing. He's our chairman, as well as the founder of the company, Dr. Shiganti, who is a well-renowned, internationally recognized leader in cancer genetics. We also have Frank Pendergast, former head of the Mayo Clinic Center for Individualized Medicine, as well as one of the founders of the Mayo Cancer Care Center, and he serves on the board also of Eli Lilly and Ativa, as well as many other institutions such as Translational Genomics Research Institute. So again, we have a very involved and active board. We've got a tremendous footprint working with 8 out of the top 10 biotech and pharma customers. We have over 400 ordering sites clinically and growing. We have a very strong franchise with immuno-oncology, growing franchise in liquid biopsy, and most importantly, a great culture that's very focused on becoming the leader in oncology from bench to bedside. So that I'd really urge you guys to take a look at Cancer Genetics, ticker CGIX, and I'll open the line up now for any questions.
Okay, we're now opening the line for our Q&A session with Cancer Genetics. And with us today, we have Panna Sharma, CEO. Welcome, Panna.
Good afternoon. Thanks for that, Paul.
We're very happy to have you back. Our first question, earlier this month, you announced multiple agreements and collaborations to develop liquid biopsy programs with key leading biopharma companies. Can you talk a little bit about the significance of this initiative?
So we have 5 active programs going on today where we're doing evaluation, design, and development of assays that can either help stratify patient populations that would be responsive to a drug because tissue is not widely available because these are either relapsed patients or later stage patients, or tissue is not available for other reasons, or these are patients in cancer types where there's a frequency of monitoring that's required, or these are high-risk patients where there's a lot of frequent monitoring, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and so doing expensive and consuming biopsies is a challenge and getting robust signatures out of them. So we've been actively engaged by leading biotech companies as well as big pharma to evaluate the technologies develop an assay, bring it into production, and in some cases actually look at a companion diagnostic pathway. So in many ways, this is the type of work that a lot of commercial, just a liquid biopsy company doing a one-off test is doing. And in our case, we're being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably in this case, now approaching seven figures over the course of this year and next year, to develop these technologies and bring them into the clinic with a partner in the pharma side. So I think this is very compelling for our investors, is that we're really being paid to develop groundbreaking new assays that we can then also bring out commercially and have pharma sponsorship. And so as a result, we'll become one of the leaders in the space in terms of understanding where the technology can be best used, which assays are best for which types of cancer, and then most importantly, own and roll these technologies out into our commercial lab.
Very exciting, Panna. Look forward to hearing some more from that as you continue down that path. The next question, this investor is curious about your recently announced collaboration with Lantern Pharma, and they were wondering if you could comment a little bit more about this particular relationship and specifically Lantern's expertise in artificial intelligence-driven drug development.
Yeah, so AI is changing every industry, including the drug discovery and drug development industry. And Lantern's really at the forefront of using, their AI engine to identify compounds that have either failed a trial, but the fundamental mechanism is sound, and where the trial failure, they believe, is largely due to a lack of using a subpopulation. And so we have the ability to subtype populations based on biomarker profile, based on genomic technology, and they have the ability to really understand drug mechanisms using AI to ferret out what are the high probability ones where the science is good but the trial design was flawed, or where the mechanism was really robust but it wasn't used properly. And so they're using their AI base along with our genomic and biomarker profiling to basically accelerate new drugs to market. And these new drugs really are rescued drugs. So safety, toxicity are not an issue typically. And so they go right into phase 2 or late phase 2, depending on how the trials are designed. And Lantern is a private company, great CEO, very smart team, and we'll be a partner for them to accelerate these drugs. And in many cases, we've talked about actually taking upside, either milestone payments or a percentage of the income stream from the drug based on the success of the work. So, and I think this is the future of how genomic and biomarker engine companies driven like CGI are going to become more important and more relevant for the drug discovery landscape, because, again, the drug discovery companies are going to be fantastic at understanding the fundamental mechanisms of which compounds work and why and how, and genomic and biomarker companies are going to be fantastic at bringing those technologies into life and understanding how to profile patients and bring robust assays into the market. So it's a great partnership, and I think this is the kind of partnership that will save billions of dollars in the industry in terms of time and energy. And more importantly, it's going to allow us to save a lot of drugs. There are a lot of really interesting compounds out there that can be reanalyzed and put towards better use.
Very exciting times to say the least. Our next question, you also, back I guess in early January, you announced that you were streamlining some of your finance and administration functions here in the U.S. How is that going to impact your path to profitability moving forward?
That's a good question. We've streamlined quite a few jobs. We had about 190 colleagues this time last year in 2016. We're now down to under 130. Just as we streamline functions, get greater efficiencies, and finance and billing were some of the last where we were able to invest in ERP systems and better technology. And now with Jay Roberts, our new COO, kind of taking over the finance and G&A and some of the billing, we're able to make that kind of last round of changes. So I think from a head count, we've never been as lean, as we have been now, but with significantly higher revenue and better profile of revenue per colleague. So I think this is, it's going to save us another, probably 7 figures this year with some of the streamlining we've been doing as a result of just the G&A and finance and billing. So it's going to get us, it's going to ensure that path to profitability for us this year. We're very focused on getting to that $10 million quarter which we believe is really the key for us to becoming a profitable company.
Thank you, Pana. And I guess in summary, what's the key takeaway? There's so much information we covered here in the Q&A and even the presentation. So what's the key takeaway for investors, especially that maybe new investors that are just learning about cancer genetics? Why should they take interest in the company today?
That's a wonderful question. I think, one, we have the most robust portfolio in the cancer space. We're really an innovation engine that's also well balanced by constant, consistent execution of market share. So, unlike a lot of companies where you're still waiting for, marketing, you're still waiting for market share, we've shown that we can continue growing market share for our technologies and capabilities. And we're well balanced. We're not relying just on one or two clinical tests or one or two customers. We've got, global customers. I think we're very, very undervalued today, given the profile we have and given the revenue growth. So I think, from a capabilities perspective, we're probably one of the leaders in oncology today. We continue to show that we can attract both top customers like Merck, emerging biotech customers like Lantern, and then at the same time continue to show operating discipline in terms of growing, top line. Over the last few quarters, we've grown our top line from 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 million a quarter, and so I think we're undervalued, but have a strong history of execution and a tremendous portfolio.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Pana. And for our viewers, we were just speaking with Pana Sharma, CEO of Cancer Genetics. The ticker symbol is CGIX on the NASDAQ. You can visit cancergenetics.com to learn more about the company.